Yes, ma'am. Shall we start, ma'am?
Yes, I don't have an issue.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, all. On behalf of IOT Academy, I welcome you all for the third session of National Level FDP on the art of research. Let me introduce the resource person of today's session, Dr. Vidya Arjunrao Nagre. She is currently working with Ajinkya D.V. Patel University, Pune. Is an associate professor of English in the School of Liberal Arts. Dr. Vidya Nagre has been teaching linguistics, English language, and literature for 12 years. Ms. Nagre did her MA, MPhil, and PhD in English from the Savitribai Pune University. She also possesses bachelor's degree in education. She has to credit several articles published in national and international journals and conferences. Besides teaching, Dr. Nagre also has trained several international as well as Indian students for English in various reputed institutions. She is a recognized translator and a certified examiner for Cambridge. With this, I hand over the session to Dr. Vidya Nagre. Ma'am, please.
Yeah, that is great. Thank you so much for your warm introduction and warm welcoming. Without losing any moment, I would like to go ahead with today's session. Kindly let me know if I'm properly audible. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and I have shared a screen. Is it visible? Hello?
Ma'am, the screen is visible, ma'am.
Hold on a second. Sorry for the disturbance. Yes, ma'am. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am, it is visible.
Okay, great. So let's go ahead with it. Congratulations, all of you, as especially IIT on organizing an FDP on such an important topic, because research methodology is something which is a crucial part of academics as well as professional development of a research scholar as well as a teacher. So to take it further, today we are going to discuss on how to write an effective research proposal, tips and tricks. Majorly focusing on funding research proposals, which was on demand. I have brought few techniques for you. And there are certain things which we have to be very careful about when you draft a research proposal for funding. So before we begin, let us first consider some basics of a funding research proposal. So always whenever you want to ask for a fund or you have to apply for a fund, you have to make sure that if that fund agency, the funding agency has certain guidelines. Most of the funding agency do have guidelines. Please study those carefully and follow all the instructions. Some funding agency may not have their own instructions that we will discuss in the next slide. So basically how your research proposal should look like. So it is like a document, a file that consists a title page. The second page is an abstract, or you can call it as a summary. Then introduction. Under introduction, you have to mention the statement of your problem. So which problem you are going to investigate, or any hypothesis that you have considered, what is your purpose of your research, your overall aims and objectives or the goal of your research, and then significance of your research. See, basically, when you apply for any research, they will definitely look into the important factor that how your research will be beneficial from various point of views. They cannot fund anybody who randomly does any research without any benefits behind it. So you have to highlight on how your research is significant from financial as well as social point of view. Then literature review is something that I personally recommend you, because if you are on, now this is something that you may not find in most of the standard research proposals, okay, funding research proposals, but you must add literature review, because it shows that how much background study you have done. And under literature review, you have to add on all those points, all those articles or books or any other things that you have visited into the literature review. So that will give a fair understanding to the next person that how earnest you are doing certain research and you have a specific knowledge or expertise. So you can handle that research well. Project narratives such as what methods you are going to use, procedures, objectives, what will be the outcome of your research, and thereafter deliverables, evaluations and disseminations and so on. Thereafter personnel and all other information. This is something is very important, that is budget and budget justification. Now these two things, how different? You have to mention your budget in your research proposal, but you have to justify your budget, that why do you need this much amount, and you have to very in detail, you have to cut it through or segregate into several points that we will be discussing under the budget section. So there are some funders with no written guidelines. So what should you do in that case? So the outline of the research proposal or project proposal, or you may call it a research proposal for funding, right? Funding research proposal. There are various terminologies that you may use. So most of these are common. They have common thread or common structure. A skeleton is similar, though you are from some technological background, arts and humanities. The skeleton is similar. So we have considered that as a central point, and then there are certain variables which you can anytime add on, or the structure is very flexible. Okay, but what are the basic things? Those are crucial into research proposal writing. Those we will be discussing today. Okay, so the most appropriate for a project that is trying to correct a problem, such as water pollution or school truancy or ignorance about certain disease, transmissible disease such as HIV, AIDS, and so on. So if somebody is going to, so I have here combined funding for project and funding for certain research both together, because those are similar on various fronts. So even if you want to go for any project and you have done ample research, background research, okay, and you are very much sure about the kind of objectives or outcomes that you will gain through your project, those will be similar to the research also. You can use this kind of structure. Okay, so let's consider that you have taken, you want to take you want to take a research on school truancy of children. That why children in certain areas are not getting basic education, which is a basic right of every child, right? So you may either go for a research trying to identify a problem, investigate a problem, and then come out with some concrete solutions. And for that, conducting a research, you may need some funds, a budget. Or else you have already found out, you already have conducted pilot project or pilot research and run some pilot project. And then you are now definitely sure about the kind of problem that is happening, or that is an hindrance to this school truancy, right? And now you want to come out with some concrete project which you think will be a solution to your statement of problem. That time also you may need a funding, right? So basically what your statement of a problem or the problem that you consider as the best should be very concrete. It should be some solution oriented. It should be beneficial. It should not be null. The grant proposal as a whole, not including supplementary material, should usually be around 5 pages or less. So basically, if you can see in this diagram, so these are certain steps. So generate an idea, then conduct some basic research, then develop a proposal, submit proposal, manage grant, and conduct research. So these are certain steps that we go through. So you identify certain area in which you want to conduct a research or do a project, and then you have to draft the research proposal. Then you have to apply it for funding. The funding agency scrutinize it, then grant you maybe full or partial funds, and then your proposal, your research or your project starts. So this is actually like a circle. And again, you have to go back with your whatever solutions you have found or whatever outcomes you have. So this is like, this is a basic structure or the process of the research proposal funding and gaining your funds. So basically you have to begin your research proposal with the summary or abstract, whatever you choose to call it. So under summary, at the beginning of your proposal itself on the cover sheet, you have to write the summary. It is around 2 to 3 sentences summary or a small paragraph. And that helps the fund agency to understand what kind of argument you are going to follow. For example, Untitled Shelter request for 50,000 for a 2-year job training program, okay, for homeless women in southwestern Jharkhand. Okay, then training will be offered at 4 rural shelters and will include basic clerical skills, interview techniques, and job seeker support groups. So basically, it will be about a project that you are planning to conduct, or you are going to offer a training program to the women who are homeless, who are needy, and you, through that training, these women will be capable to gain certain employability skills. But this is not that easy that you go and offer these solutions. It needs some fundings, and for that you are applying for the aid fund. So organization information will be the secondary point that you will be including in your research proposal for funding. So this basically goes on into 2 to 3 paragraphs about your organization, why it can be trusted to use funds effectively, because trust is a basic factor that is at the core, and then any agency won't easily give you the funding unless and until you could convince them. And now, how to build a trust? You should have some ample work done before, which you can cite or list down in your proposal, which will give them a clarity or a picture that will talk about what kind of work you are doing and are you capable to do that. Because if they are going to invest into you, then their fund has to be utilized in the proper way. So briefly summarize about your organization's history. State your mission, whom you serve, and your track of records of achievement in past. Clearly describe or list your all programs. Programs those you have already finished or going on, ongoing programs, or you programs those you might have planned in future. If your programs are many or complex in nature, then consider adding an organization chart or other attachments, a separate attachment that gives a detailed explanation. So describe your very important part is after this, describe your budget size, where you are located, who runs the organization and does the work. So who is going to take the major responsibility? So information about your director or the employer, the employees and your whole team. You can share the resumes, list down their names along with their qualification, their work experience, and the salary that you pay. Other details that build the credibility of the group. So these are some other details you can add on. If other groups in your region work on the same issue, which is a quite possibility in most of the research proposals, mostly these are some repetitive topics, but with some new viewpoint, you want to run that. Somebody might have done it before or tried doing it before, but you have a very different vision and you might take it to a next level, successful level, right? And with that vision, you want to begin with this research or begin with this project. And that's why you want this fund. So in this way, you have to write that thing down. How your topic or your research will be different than those which are already conducted or those failed. So you have to talk about that. And at the same time, if you wish to collaborate with them, you have to mention that too. So basically, Even if you have received funds from this grant maker before, your introduction should be complete. So it may happen that you might have conducted some other research or a project and taken grant from the same fund agency, right? But don't consider that they don't know everything. You are applying it fresh with a new topic. So give a complete information. Funders sometimes hire outside reviewers who may not be familiar with your organization. So give a detailed information. Now, problem that you are going to handle or need or situation description. Convince the funder that this issue you want to tackle is very important and show that your organization is an expert on this issue. So you have to give some concrete proofs that you have certain experience tackling in this particular field or handling such kind of problems or working in this field. Though not you directly, then people you which you have hired for this task are capable enough or their qualification or their work experience suits to this particular field. Don't assume the funder knows everything. Add an informative article or suggest some background reading to them. For example, you have came out with some research that water pollution in Pune region, where I belong to. So Pune is actually very blessed with very beautiful ecology, and there are many rivers around. But all rivers are beyond the capacity of using. They have become more like huge drainages because of the kind of pollution that is thrown into those waters, right? So if I am going to talk about that, then I may suggest or I may attach the list of articles if I have some paper cuttings or if I have some yeah, online resources, then I may make a list of those and I'll just take some top few and then suggest the funder that kindly go through it. So you will understand the intensity or the gravity of this issue. For example, the rare species of fish are dying now, or it has just gone beyond the oxygen level has gone so low that no animal can live in that water body. So this might be something, or it might be creating some kind of poisonous gas or something like that, or harming the region or soil around that river or something like that. So there are certain articles which or certain videos or any other things that I may attach to it, so that will give a more concrete background to the problem that you are going to handle. Why is this situation important? That is the next question which you should answer in your research proposal. To whom did your organization talk, or what research did you do exactly to learn about the issue and decide how to tackle it? So overall you are planning that how are you going to conduct this research. Are you going to connect with some government agencies or organizations or government offices or officials, or if you want to take information from some private agencies, and what will be your steps of your research, and then how will you handle the overall situation? Describe the situation in both factual and human interest terms, if possible. Because factual gives a concrete idea to the funder that if it is practical enough to be funded. Human interest, from the human perspective, you have to convince them that how ecologically or from the sustainable point of view, this particular thing is very important. Providing ample data. Your organization is expert in the field. This is what you have to convince through your proposal. And for that, you have to provide ample data. So that data may consist of the previous work that you have done, or if you have received any awards, if you have done any special efforts towards certain kind of problem solving, your employees which are suitable for this task, and the kind of facilities also you give to your employees, which may also give a very good focus on the way modus operandi of your particular organization. If you lack data, so in case you are a novice in this field, you are doing this for the first time, but you have a very bright idea, consider doing your own research study, even if it is simple. You should always make sure that before you apply for some fund, before you write your research proposal, you should do a background study, ample research. You should have ample literature review done by your own. So that will prove that what kind of knowledge you possess. Describe your issue in as local context as possible. Why? If you want to educate people in your country, let's say about AIDS or some other disease or anything like that, or nutritional values, nutritional needs to pregnant women, or need of child education or something like it, tell the funder about the epidemic in your country or the locality that you have chosen. Do not talk in a generalized terms like what happened in Asia or what happened in the whole world, because your project or your research is going to focus on particular region, on particular zone. So you have to be focused only on that, because you are going to get a limited fund which you can't apply for the whole Asia, which is impractical, because you have to focus on a small area first. Start working from there. Later on, if your that pilot project is successful, the same model can be applied by you or your colleagues or other organizations who share the similar interest in certain kind of projects. They may apply your model in their regions, get funds from some other or the same funder, and then it can be expanded. But right now, understand very important thing is you have to talk about the region specifically where you are focusing this thing. For example, it is about child education, right? School truancy. So where you are going to conduct it, a region or a village in Tamil Nadu, a small certain village in Tamil Nadu, or 5 villages nearby in Tamil Nadu, right? So that will be very subtle, focused research or focused project that you may successfully conduct. If you focus on a very huge, large area, then it won't be practical. Describe the problem in a simple way. Avoid generalized pictures like nuclear, what happened due to the nuclear war, teen suicide, and so on, and then how it is affecting on children education and so on. These are two different things. Keep it separate. Focus on your problem and make it simple, brief, and subtle. Don't describe the problem as the absence of your project. Means do not use the language of negation. Always have a language of affirmation. For example, you do not have enough beds for the battered women's shelter. This is a statement that you have made. Here you have added negation. Rather than you should say that the problem in that area is increased, the problem or the level of domestic violence is increased so much that we need more shelter beds as a solution. See, here we have not used any word of negation. So you have to be very careful while drafting your statement problem. Work plan or specific activities. Explain what your organization plans to do about this particular problem. What are your overall goals? For example, the goals of the project are to increase the understanding among Indian middle school students about the impact of smoking on their health. That is a problem we want to focus on, and then to reduce the number of students who smoke through your project or through your research or something like that. So you have to talk about the overall goal, what you want to achieve, what problem you are going to tackle, and through that, what you want to achieve. What problem, how will you tackle, and what will you achieve? These 3 questions are very important to be included in your research proposal to convince the next person. So though you write it for fun or though you write as a research proposal for your thesis or your dissertation, this is something is very important. Next person should get convinced that your problem that you have chosen is very important to tackle. Through your research, you are going to add on into something. You are not repeating something that is already in existence. You are going to do something new, or you are at least going to contribute into it. Then your research proposal successfully gets qualified. Other details such as who is your target audience, how will you involve them in this activity, how many people do you intend to serve, the direct participants and indirect beneficiaries. So direct participants, for example, if you are doing a project, or let's say research on smoking, on the health of school-going children, right? So they are the direct participants who will, be the object of your research. You will observe them, you will talk with them, you will interview them, you will apply some remedies, you will give some them medications, and then meditation, and so many solutions, right? But indirect beneficiaries will be their families, the children. If the children gets rid of smoking habit, then indirect beneficiaries will be their families, that village, and the society, right? So it's a huge circle which will be under the indirect beneficiaries. So you have to convince in that way that through your research, what kind of large impact that you are going to create. What are you going to do? Projects output a specific time period. For example, how many hours of counseling on the nutrition to the pregnant ladies will you be devoting? Because many ladies in India, especially because India is a hub of children born with malnutrition, though their parents are rich or not, that's a very different debate, okay? But many ladies are not aware about what kind of things they should consume when they are pregnant. So this is also a kind of generous project that you can do, that counseling to this kind of ladies on their nutritional health. Or for example, you can go in some deprived region like villages, distant villages in India, and there you can conduct such kind of project or a research. Don't promise an unrealistic level of service. This is something is very important. Otherwise, the funder will not get convinced, and if you fail to achieve your objective, that will create a very negative impact, and you will not get funds next time. What project planning has already taken place? So if you have already done any research, secured the commitment of participants, or done other initial work, describe it. So the funder can see that you are very well prepared and you have a sound knowledge of the field in which you want to conduct a research or do a project. Who is going to do the work and what are their credentials? So attach the resumes of the key people. For example, you have 100 employees. Of course, you cannot add on. Nobody will have that much time to scrutinize that. There might be some minor employees like some helpers or load wages or something like that. But attach the resumes of the key people like director, manager, team leader, and so on. Some funders ask for the name of the project director, the person most responsible for the project. Because if that person is well known from the circle of the funder or the sub-circles of the funder, then only that good identity may also invite very good funds, whether volunteer or paid. So if you have volunteers, then it is a very selfless service that people are doing on free. Or if you have to pay for the wages to people on daily basis or on contract basis or monthly basis, whatever it is, you have to make it clear. Demonstrate that the staff or volunteers have the expertise to do a good job. You have to make sure that you employ such people which are suitable to that profile only. Only then funder will understand that this project will be successful. When will the project take place? So you have to talk about tentative start date and end date, because that will give a tenacity of time. Where will the project take place? You may not know the answers to all these questions, okay, when you submit your proposal. But the more you know and the more you can add on, that is better. And always remember that unless and until your proposal is visited or scrutinized by the board of actually for review and granted, till then you can even keep on supplying the additional information. So do not worry about it. Always apply the mind's eye test. What is mind's eye test? Your explanation or your detailing should be as such. If the person closes the eyes, the whole picture should be visible in front of the inner eye of the mind. And only then, if a person can visualize it better, the person can understand it better, and the person can guess it better what kind of benefits or what kind of conclusions or outcome will be there from your proposal, from your research, or from your project, and then they will feel convinced to give you the funds. So that's very important. Outcome or impact of activities. What impact your project will have? Result of your project. So possible outcomes. For example, your pregnancy nutrition counseling program intends to increase the birth weight of your client's babies. The impact of the project is sometimes hard to define because it may happen or it may not. In such cases, for example, smoking cessation program is clear that you are going to give this kind of medications or meditations and other things, and at least 50% of the students will get rid of it. But if you go on for some leadership programs for teenagers, the outcomes are very ambiguous. Other fundings. Now, this is something is very important. If other organizations have committed funds to the project or been asked to do so. So what happens if you want large funds, then you can, of course, ask for many funders at a time. For example, you need some 15 lakh. So you can ask for 5 lakh to one agency, some 2-3 lakh or some 5 or 10 lakhs to somebody else. In this way also these things happen. Or else few funders want to be the sole support of the project. Most of you might be aware about that online program that goes on Shark Tank, right? So there also very brilliant minds, Indian minds come there with their some new ideas, innovations, and some projects, right? And then the sharks which are sitting there who are already good, successful businessmen with lot of money, and they want to fund them. If they find that it is going to be highly beneficial, then they bid for it, and then only one of them want to fund it solely, so that whatever the benefits will be, that will be shared only between him and the project owner, right? But if there is a vague nature of the kind of benefits or outputs, those will be coming from your project, or if your project has demand of high cost, then you may or the even funder also wants you to seek for other sponsors also as a helping hand. So funders generally expect you to ask for support from more than one source. In this section, you can also describe the in-kind contribution. Now, this is something is very important for you to understand. Now, in-kind contribution is something that cannot be counted in cash. For example, some funder may not help you out with the cash, but that person has a huge space or office room. That person can give you that office room to use for your project until the end of your project. So that person may do an agreement with you and give you that office space without any lease or something like that. So that comes under the in-kind contribution. For example, if you want to start a school of your own, then there might be somebody who can donate chairs or benches for children or boards or something like that. So these things are not counted into cash, so this becomes in-kind contributions. Future funding. If you continue this project in future, how will it be supported? So if your project or your research is long lasting, that won't be finished in a very small span of time, then what to do? Most funders don't want to support the same set of projects forever. Many funders see their niche as funding innovation. So they've tried to find it as an opportunity, supporting new approaches to old problems or finding solutions to new problems, whatever it is. But they want to invest into new things and not for a long time. So it is a challenge and a skill again of you that you have to be able to provide a long-term vision of your project or of your research in your research proposal in such a way that the funder must get convinced that your project is sustainable and it needs this much time and this much money. Okay, so you have to bargain on that. You have to debate on that through your research proposal. So funding plan for the project that the project is sustainable, especially if it is a new activity. If you don't have such a plan, then please start thinking about it. Though not for the success of your project, but for the success of your organization also. Otherwise, your project may fail soon. You may get funds and suddenly it will be under the shades because of not thinking about, or because of not having a foresightedness, not thinking about a distant future. So you should think about from all the angles before you step into any project or step into any research. Evaluation is something very important. How will you know whether you achieved the desired impact or not? If you have done a good job of defining them, all you need to be here is describe the information you will gather to tell you how close you come. For example, if you are very much sure about the outcomes of your research and what kind of background study you have done, convince them on that basis. If you're already done with your research and done some pilot project and then you are going to start a project, convince them that I know that this is going to be successful because I have done research based on this hypothesis, based on this statement of problem. I received these outcomes and these benefits. These are my findings to this or the solution to these problems. And I applied it successfully to the small group. Now I want to apply it to the larger scale, on the larger scale. Will you keep records of incoming hotline calls? So for example, if you are helping in a suicide prevention program or something like that, then tell them how will you maintain the records. So will you keep the record of incoming hotline calls? Will you call your counseling client 6 months after they leave the program to ask how are they doing? Because just counseling and just leaving won't do. What is more important, that how have you helped them to stand independent? Because you can't be with them forever, right? And they should be able to stand on their own, tackle on their own. They are going to face these panic attacks again. But that time, your remedies, whatever remedies you have provided through your counseling, should be helpful for them so they can apply that technique and then calm down themselves in that situation and handle the situation well. So you have to take a feedback from your clients. Explain who will gather the evaluation information and how you will use it. So overall, your structure of your plan. So mind's eye technique. So everything that should be like a blueprint, just that has to come into color. You have to put it in this way. Be sure your evaluation plan is achievable given your resources. If the evaluation will cost money, be sure to put the cost of the project budget right now. Why? Now, budget is something which we have to definitely discuss here when we talk about fund. Fund itself is talk about budget. How much will the project cost? Attach 1 or 2 separate pages. Budget showing expected expenses, income for the project. Now, expenses are again divided to 3 sections: personal, direct, and then administrative or overhead. Now, under personal expenses, include expenses for all the people who will work on the project. They may be employees of your organization or independent contractors. If they are employees, list the titles. Means you have to make a chart. In one column, list the titles. There, in second column, their annual pay rate. Third column, person working less than full time or less than 12 months or something like that. Contract basis, hourly basis, permanent, full time, whatever it is. Mention their roles. The portion of the time to be dedicated to the project, sorry. So how much time from each person you need. For example, your project needs 6 months to complete. If 8 hours a day dedicated or 10 hours a day dedicated, then how many employees do you need to, and if one person can work on 5 hours, then you need 2 people, right, to finish with the 1 hour routine, and then how many people you need for 6 months. So accordingly, you have to make calculation. So for example, if an employee will work half time on the project from October through May, counseling director, let's say, you are going to pay him 35,000 rupees. Okay, and half of the time I have saved. So you have to divide it by 50%. And then you have to multiply it into 8 months from October to May. And then the overall total will be 11,667 per person. That is counseling director. That will be his salary. Okay, so you have to clearly add on these calculations in this way. And you have to give everything, that is 35,000 divided by 50%, then into multiplied by 8 months. You are, and then is equal to 11,667 rupees. So you have to give calculations in a very brief and very clear way. Make nice chart for that. Also consider the time that may be contributed by other staff who are not directly involved. For example, executive director must supervise the counseling director. So executive director's salary is 40,000 divided by 5% and into 8 months. So the overall will be 1,333. So if you are using employees for the project, don't forget to add payroll taxes such as Medicare, unemployment, or workers' compensations, and the fringe benefits such as health insurance, because you are the one who are going to pay for that. So not only the salaries, but also include the charges of everything here. Before you make your overall expenses or budget, please make sure that you have added each and everything. If you submit the proposal, it's get it granted, and then you remember a major cost, something major that you want to bear a cost for. You cannot go back and ask the funder for that. Your portion is gone. Then whatever you have received, you have to manage into it, or you have to pay from your own pocket. So you have to make sure that you make a list of each and everything. You can include a portion of these costs equal to the portion of person's time dedicated to the project for independent contractors, such as list either the flat fee, you will pay like 1,500 to design costumes for a play, or hourly rate like 40 rupees per hour into 40 hours, right, for a month or so, something like that. Direct project expenses. So non-personal expenses, these are also known as non-personal expenses, such as you would not incur if you do not do this project. But when you apply for a fund, you have to mention it. Okay. They can be almost anything, such as travel cost, printing, space, equipment rental, supplies, insurance, and so on. Remember that you will have to live with this budget. You can't go back to the funder and ask for more money because you forgot to add on something. So think carefully about all the expenses you will have. If you will be hiring new people, for example, don't forget that you may have to pay for classified ads. So add a budget of that also. In your chart, make a column for classified ads, this much. Also take the time to get accurate estimate. If you will be printing a brochure, don't guess at the cost. Call your printer and ask for a rough estimate, and then add on that also as a proof if you have finalized one. Administrative or overload expenses. Now, non-personal expenses you'll incur whether or not you do the project. But if you do the project, these resources can't be used for anything else. For example, if you pay 5,000 a month for an office space, and if you don't do that project, still you have to keep on paying for the space. Be sure to read funders' fine print on administrative or overhead expenses. Note, be sure to add up all your expenses carefully. Incorrect budget presentation may fail you to receive the fund, and that is a major mistake that happens. If you put excessive budget, which funders may find impractical, you'll never get a money or never get funds for that. So add on something that is practical, to the point. Whatever you have added, convince them on that basis that it is very necessary. All income for a project fits into two categories: earned income and contributed income. So earned income, that, for example, there are certain services or products that you may produce out of your project, and you will get money for exchange of that product, right? But no, for example, if you are going to perform something, then, for example, tickets, 10 rupees per ticket, 3 performances a day, 200 seats in that hall, right? and 50% you are minusing for that house cost. And whatever will be remain, that is 3,000, will be your pure benefit. So you have to talk about that also. So some funders may ask you for partial share in your overall income after the completion of your fund. Contributed income, that is not in cash, which is also known as in kind. So there are certain people who donate you the amount. Okay, and under that also please make a separate list which amount you receive, which is committed but not received yet, or which is pending or to be submitted, something like that. If you plan to seek funds from a number of other funders also, then list them under the section of other funders. In-kind contributions we have already talked about, that it is not in cash but in goods or some other kind of help. In-kind contributions are really important. Why? 3 reasons. It shows in which the community is supporting you for the project. So how social is your project, right? That other people are coming forth on their own and they are helping you out. So that gives a very different kind of authenticity to the kind of project or research you're going to do. Second is, it shows also the true cost of the project. Third thing is, if you are applying for a matching grant, then in-kind income also gives a fair idea about the overall cost that you may incur. Supplementary material. Funders may ask for a variety of materials along with the proposal itself. For example, your organization is tax exempted. So whatever documents needed, such as ITR, Form 16 or whatever it is, you have to add to that. And you have to show that your organization is tax exempted. Only then the funder will approve the funds, or list of your board of directors and their affiliations to authentify the data. Financial statement of your last year, financial year completed. Or if you have done something in past, or if you are doing it for the first time, then current financial statement of current financial year you can submit. Or if you have not done anything yet, then your overall tentative budget for the next financial year, you can add that. Putting it all together, now put the whole thing together. So you should have a cover sheet, very appropriated, the proposal, the budget, the supplementary material, whatever proofs you want to attach to it, everything, and add a cover letter to it if you wish. Some funders ask for a cover letter, few don't, and accordingly you have to write it down. Under cover letter also, what you have to add is, what is your statement of problem, what are your objectives, aims and objectives, what is your plan to work out this research or work out this project, how much will it cost overall, the aggregate of your budget, and what are the possible benefits and outcome of your project and significance of your project. These things will be in the cover letter. And then you will be adding everything in detail in your proposal. Don't put the proposal in a fancy binder. A paper clip is fine. Be sure to note, because this is an official document and formal communication. You're using for the formal communication. So you keep the formal professionalism maintained. Be sure to note if the funder wants multiple copies of anything, if a cover sheet needs to be signed by a staff or board member, ask everything for clarification before you submit. Variations on the standard outline. So if your project is from some technical or non-technical background, you can add on few points. Okay, for example, there are small requests or non-problem based projects. Some projects may not have some problem, right? Or general operating proposals, capital or endowment proposal, and so on. So accordingly, the structure overall skeleton that we have discussed may change. It's very flexible, but there are certain things such as aims and objectives, significance, your major statement, if it is not statement of problem, the hypothesis, or your aims and objectives, your possible outcome. These are certain common things which will be there definitely in any kind of research proposal. Other common questions about grant writing. So if you have questions like this, should I apply to more than one grant maker at a time? Should I ask each one of the project's entire cost or just a portion? Then definitely you can ask for multiple people at a time, because not necessarily that everyone will approve your funds. And you may, if you apply to multiple agencies, then you may get fund at least from some resource. If in case you get 2-3 people's approval at a time, then you can choose the one which is most beneficial for you, and then reply the other two that you have received the fund before this and thank for their kind gesture. Should I use a professional grant writer? Definitely you can go for it. Take help of professional grant writer because they are the experts in writing grants, but it is you who should be directly involved in it because you have a fair idea about your own research or your own project. So it is you who has to ultimately write it down. You just take grant writer, professional grant writer as a helping hand, but you have to do overall writing. Why should I do, what should I do if my proposal is rejected? If possible, get back or contact to the funding agency and check out where it has gone wrong. Sometimes they may are running out of financial funds, and they might have lied to your project. So in future, you can keep them in loop. There might be some misunderstanding, or they might have misread some information. That is also quite possibility. So you can clarify that. So it is always better if you could get into loop through some resources to the agency. If they tell you on front that they did not like your project, or they find your idea impractical and they can't support you, no problem. You find some other fund agency and apply there. But do not lose your hope. Somebody is made for you, and then made for each other. You will get grant from somewhere, but it is also a time when you have to revisit your whole proposal and find out if there is any flaw, or if your language is not convincing, then you have to redraft it properly. What should I do if my proposal is funded? Then it goes through the process that we have discussed, that if it gets funded, then do not only think that, yes, I have received my funds and now I'll conduct my research and I'll do my project. Don't do that. You have to keep the agency updated with the progress of your project or with the progress of your research and how it is practically benefiting. Okay, from factual point of view and from human benefit point of view. That will keep the funders also motivated to help you out in future. Though they ask for it or not, it is your duty as a person who have seek fund from them. Keep them in loop about the progress of your project and progress of your research. What should I do if I raise some money but not all I need? Then you have to find out for other resources. If you don't get any, then you have to minimize your project and run it on small scale. So to conclude it, for finally, seeking grant money can be time consuming, sometimes frustrating, but there is only one solution, that is patience. And do not lose hope. Tone of writing is very important. The language, the choice of words, you have to be very careful about it. One wrong word will ruin your whole proposal. So your language has to be very convincing. The tone of your writing should be very polite, humble, and very convincing. So you have to choose such words. You have to add politeness markers wherever it is, those are needed. Your tone has to be very affirmative. Avoid negations, rather saying we do not have enough beds. Say more beds are needed due as the cases are rising high. Give emphasis or stress on certain factors by repeating the sentences or repeating the words or stressing the words again and again. If you feel that this is very necessary to and it will help you to convince your listeners or your fund agency. Convincing tone, again, your proposal has to be very systematic. It has a structure. Before you start writing, ask for the agency people if they have certain format recommended. Please follow that as it is. Do not add on anything into it. If they do not have a format, then whatever we have discussed, add on all those points, beginning with the summary, talking about your aims and objectives, statement of problem, significance, possible outcomes, overall budgeting, and the employees, list of employees and people engaged in it, and overall benefit on larger scale and all. So follow the sequence. Keep it brief. Do not make it like a thesis, right? Keep it is a small document, but of course a detailed one. So keep it around 4 to 5 pages. That will be enough. And if you feel like, wherever you feel for more clarity, you have to add some data, then please add some more documents to it, like articles or brochures or your past statement of financial year or anything like that. Add on into it and give links or references. So it has to be brief, yet detailed, and end on a positive note, which is very important. So here are some samples that we will see that how this proposals look like practically. This is one simple sample that I have brought for you. I hope that we have 5 more minutes. So I am just keeping with the time, I guess. Give me a minute. I am just trying to open this. I have shared my entire screen, so I hope whatever I am doing here is visible. Okay, I have randomly shortlisted 2 samples here for you. So to understand whatever we have discussed in a practical way. So it is mind's eye. Okay, so this is one sample for Kuswell educational system that they have. This is a sample grant proposal in short. So they have a nice cover letter, cover page, grant proposal, and then format also. So this is how a letter has to be written. It is cover letter is like an application letter itself, but the kind of language you use, the kind of content you choose is little different. So as I told you, once you give a salutation and address and everything, give subject, address that person with the designation of that person, that will be better in formal communication. And then talk about, give a brief intro about your organization or your who you are. If you are doing a research, if you want to do a project, then about your organization. And then talk about major statement of your problem, significance of your research, aims and objectives, possible benefits and possible outcomes, overall budgeting. So all these things will be included here. If needed, then you should give the list of enclosure and then ask them to refer it back. And this is what is a funding proposal. So it begins with the project abstract or summary, whatever you choose. Give a subtle title to it. Keep it very simple. Give the project abstract, then introduction, the statement. So if you don't have a statement of problem, then write a statement of need. Then project description or program description or research description. So both are in simultaneous way about your agency here in detail. And then aims and objectives. Now this is very brief. That is what I told. And then references is literature review they have done. And then goals or aims and objectives written. Okay. Then this is what is the timeline of the activities. So submit grant proposal in October 2002. Then expected grant notification. Begin first 12-week phase, March 2003 to May 2003. Then test reading improvement, prepare result report, and so on. So these are the deadlines, tentative deadlines given. Okay. Then overall budget. This is something is very crucial because that is what is the title of your research proposal. That is funding research proposal, right? Or research proposal for funds. So funds are very needed for us, for our research or for our project. So you have to think very carefully, make a nice chart, however columns needed, add on those, and then keep on adding the rows and add on even a rupee. If you want to take a printout of something, then 1 rupee or 2 rupees of it, add on everything into it. Because once you get an acceptance of your funds, you cannot reapply for it. So you have to think of the overall cost here. Then evaluation of how this will be. I'll just quickly read it for you. So provide information on the metrics that will be used to determine the effectiveness of the project or the program. For example, standardized reading test will be conducted at the start of the read to succeed. This is a program, okay? Program, and again at the end of the school of the year to determine the increased in the reading speed and comprehension. So might be students were not capable to read fluently, but after giving your sessions or your project, then now they are improved. There is an improvement, and that can be tested again at the end. So that is how you are planning to evaluate the progress. Staff and organization information. This is what I have already discussed because it creates a very positive impression. If the names of the director and the major responsible people for your project or research are from some good known circles, then you will easily get the funds. And then appendices. So what are the things you have attached here? So your letter or proof document of tax exemption. Thereafter, your statement of financial year, last financial year, current financial year, your overall tentative planning for the future next financial year budgeting and so on. Any brochures or list of programs you have done, anything like that, you can add. So in this way, this proposal looks like it. And this is again the letter repeated. So sample letter format for grant proposal or the funding. So I hope I made it clear. I'm stopping the presentation with your permission, and over to you, IOT.
The session is open for discussion now. You can post your questions in the chat box, or you can directly unmute and directly interact with the resource person. Thank you.
Good evening, ma'am. You have really presented a very elaborate presentation lecture on how to write a research proposal. In a very young age, you have done good research, and thank you very much for your presentation. We would like to have your email ID so that in case we need some help, we can.
Definitely. I'll
Dr.
share it
Shankar.
with the IIT as they are the one who have organized it. And then definitely. Thank you so much for that. This is something, ma'am, is very crucial and also beneficial. You know, many of us are not much aware about how to write the funding research proposals. Most of you have very bright ideas, but if we can't put it in a proper way, if we can't maintain the tone or write it in the very successful way, I'm really sorry, I lost the network. Am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this was just a sort of discussion that I did, and I hope that it may be helpful for you. And if you need any help, I am always there. Okay, I'm dropping my email ID here. If there is any other question.
Jaya ma'am, you have raised the hand.
Begum ma'am, I have dropped my email ID here in the chat box.
Any more questions? Shall we wind up now?
No issues. So thank you so much, IIT, for giving me an opportunity to talk on a very crucial topic like writing a research proposal on funding especially. And I hope that it may benefit to the listeners also, and somewhere I may contribute them directly or indirectly in writing a good research proposal. And I wish that they may get the funds. Thank you so much, all of you. And thank you so much for the given session.
Thank you. On behalf of IOT Academy, I thank Dr. Vidya ma'am. It was a very detailed and informative session, ma'am, and tips and tricks to write an effective research proposal. It was very, very useful. And I thank all the participants for joining the meeting. Thank you all.
So much.
And kindly submit the feedback for. Thank you, ma'am. Thank
Yes,
you.
I'll take your team. All the best, all of you.